My name is Eric Silver. I am in Fort Worth, Texas, and we opened in June of 2008. Before starting my fish franchise, I had a few different jobs, mostly in sales and marketing. One of my first jobs was I was a marketing manager for a small software firm. Then I was a account executive for a graphic design firm, and I got to work with a lot of different small businesses there and have a lot to do with their marketing campaigns and helping build their image. The last job I had before coming to Fish and opening the Fish franchise was as a Yellow Page sales representative and a sales manager. And what was funny about that is before starting the Fish franchise, I spent a lot of time on the other side of the table trying to get people to spend money on Yellow Page advertising. And then after I started my Fish franchise, I was trying to figure out how to be very frugal with that money on the Yellow Page advertising. So I found Fish through a unique channel. I was actually going back to school to get my master's in business administration. And I had taken a class on entrepreneurship, and one of the segments of the class, or one of the sections, was talking about franchising. And I was at a point in my career in Yellow Page advertising where I knew things were not going to be going in a positive direction there. Yellow Page advertising was kind of going away, and online advertising was really picking up. So I looked at that a little bit further, the franchising part of the entrepreneurship class, and had a particularly rough day at work one day and came home and got on the internet and did a little bit of research and filled out a form, which turned out to be for a franchise consultant, and put some information in there, and we got a call from the franchise consultant a couple of days later and started the process of talking to them about what our goals were and what we wanted to do. And that's how we ended up finding Fish as basically through a franchise consultant, but it was because I had taken that class on entrepreneurship, which had a franchising component. I always wanted to be a business owner. I just didn't know with what. I never really felt like I was particularly great at any one thing or had a hobby that I really wanted to monetize. So franchising really felt like it was something that would be a good step for us. When we were presented the idea of Fish window cleaning by the franchise consultant, prior to them presenting us the idea, they asked my wife and I what kind of cars we drove. And we kind of looked at each other because we were doing this over the kitchen table one night before we went to bed. We were having a conference call with a franchise consultant, and they asked what we drove for a car. And at the time, we both drove a Hyundai. And so we told him that, and he goes, "Oh, great." And I asked, why are you asking that question? And he said, "Well, I want to know if you are image people. Like, for example, do you drive a Lexus or a BMW?" And he said, "Because I may come back to you and present a porta potty idea. And if that's not something that fits with you, there's no point in me trying to do that." And I said, "Whatever's going to make money, I'm happy with." So when the franchise consultant came back to us, they presented us with a painting franchise, a framing, like a quick framing franchise, and then a water recovery or water reclamation, and then also Fish. And we really liked, once they went through and explained everything to us, we really liked the Fish franchise. We loved the idea that it was mostly during the week, that it was focused on commercial. The model sounded terrific, and so we just, from that moment, the other ones really weren't even in contention. Once we found out a little bit more about the franchise itself and what goes into making a Fish franchise operate, it felt like it really fit with our goals. We ended up choosing Fish for a couple of different reasons, mostly because the family environment, the family friendliness of the franchise itself and the people that work there. We felt really good after visiting the home office. We really liked the model of focusing mostly on commercial accounts rather than residential. We really liked that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, that you're diversifying your income across hundreds or thousands of accounts as you build your business. And so we really liked the way that the business model was put together. It was a very family-friendly environment with the idea that you'd be working mostly during the week and not at nights or on the weekends. And I know a lot of the franchises, the other ones we looked at really had to do with being more of a focus on residential, which meant you'd be working a lot at night when you're meeting with customers and things like that. Another thing that we really liked about the model itself was that we wouldn't be putting all of our eggs in one basket in terms of accounts. So by following the model and the business plan, we would be building a business where our revenue is spread across several hundred or thousands of accounts. Rather than having 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 customers, we're going to have several hundred. And so if you lose a couple customers here or there, it's not going to hurt you. It'll take a while to get those things going in the right direction, but the idea that there's diversification really made us feel comfortable. So that's really what drove us to go with Fish, is the model and then the people behind the model. When we started, it was in the fall of 2008, and it was interesting. The first day I opened the office, I sat down and I thought, what am I going to do today? And about an hour into the day, as I was getting ready to go out and start street bidding, I had one of my neighbors call from our Dallas office and had an emergency window cleaning for us. And so, for us, it was for me, because I was the only one in the office. So I gathered up all my gear, I went over and I did that cleaning. It took me most of the day, and as we built, we kept that customer for a long time. And as we built the business, our cleaners would go and clean the job in about an hour. So the first time I cleaned it took me most of the day because I just wasn't familiar with what I was doing. So the startup of the business was great. We started with no customers, and we just went out and started street bidding and cleaning the glass. About a month into our startup, I had appendicitis and I was in the hospital. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. So once I got out of the hospital, I went back to work, but didn't really feel good for a couple of months. And the nice thing about it is we had got the business going and got things started, and the employees that we had kind of kept things going while I was in the hospital and still recovering. So that was a great benefit to having the system that we had and the structure that was behind the system. So now that we've been in the business for about 10 years, there are some pretty distinct differences between day one and year 10, or year 1 and year 10. At the beginning, it was all me, and it was just me coming in every day, and I would answer the phone, I would clean the windows, I would collect the money, and now we have an office staff that answers the phones, collects the money. We have our staff. We have a couple training managers that train our staff on how to clean. We have a sales team that goes out and sells. So most of my day is around running the business and is focused on working on the business and not in the business. So I will spend my time on looking at things like, do we need to add another training manager, or should we be adding another vehicle, or are we selling the right mix of accounts? So I'm looking at a more global view of the business, and so where there's some things that I wasn't having to do when we were much smaller, there's those things I'm having to take care of now. But that's really why I wanted to get into the business. I wanted to be doing those larger picture things instead of the day-to-day cleaning the glass, collecting the money, selling the accounts, and that type of thing. So now my business life is a little bit more of what I wanted it to be when I started. So it took us a couple of years to get there, but it's been a really good ride. When we first started, there was just me. So I did all of the selling, cleaning, and collecting. 10 years later, we have an operations manager that is responsible for running the office. We have an administrative assistant who is collecting accounts receivable and answering the phone. We have a couple of salespeople, and we have 10 cleaners. So we are keeping them all busy, and the whole business really is working together. So one of those positions feeds the other, and everybody there can see that. So they're all on the same team. They all know that what I'm doing is affecting somebody else. And my role is to keep an overview of that entire business and make sure that everything continues to function. And as we grow, things need to change. We may need to add another administrative assistant, so I'm watching numbers and calculating when I think would be the right time to add that, or we might find another salesperson and we need to figure out how to work them into the mix. We're always adding cleaners, we're always interviewing. The funny thing is, it's really not about can we sell the accounts, it's about can you get them what you have cleaned, and do you have enough people to clean the stuff that's going to come in every week? Because there's new accounts coming every week, whether you like it or not. And we like it. So I think the reason that I've been a successful franchisee is when I started, I had put everything into this. So failure was not an option. We needed to make this work. And for me to come home and tell my wife that it wasn't working, I just couldn't do it. And I knew that because the system was there and the system had been around for so long and been refined, that if I followed the steps and I followed the process and the roadmap that is the system, it was going to work. So it really became a matter of determination for me and just work ethic. And I knew that I had the work ethic. I knew if I put my mind to it, I could make it happen. My favorite aspect about running the business is I'm in control of my business, my job, my investment, and my day. And so I get to control when I come into work. I get to control when I go home from work. I get to control when I can spend time with my family. And those are all very important things to me. I get to do the things that I want to do and work on the things I want to work on. For example, I don't want to be involved on the day-to-day scheduling of the job. So I've hired somebody to run the jobs and schedule those jobs. I work on the bigger picture things, like insurance and making sure that we're getting good rates on that, and deciding when it's time to hire another cleaner, or when it's time to hire more salespeople, or do we need another administrative assistant. So those are the things that I like to work on, is the bigger picture stuff. I don't want to get down into the details and the minutia of what's going on. So the fact that I have control over that part of my day and that part of my life really makes me feel good about the fish system. So the thing that I like best about what fish has afforded me is the amount of time that I can spend with my family. When I was working for someone else, I was always worried about, am I putting in enough time? And am I doing the right things? With the fish system, it's my business. I know when I'm putting in enough time. I know when I'm doing the right things. And so what that's allowed me to do is be a little more free with my work life and choosing when I'm going to be there. It's also helped us financially. We got into it thinking that we just needed to make enough money to get by on, and it's done better than that for us. And that's because I truly believe it's because I feel free enough and I don't feel the pressure of someone standing over me to get, to grow the business. It's more pressure that I put on myself to grow it. And that's been a great, journey for us so far. That was the question I asked when I was doing validation. And the reason that I felt comfortable going forward is most people said yes, they would, and I absolutely would. I would absolutely do this again. I encourage people that are looking at this business to continue to look hard and talk to as many people as they can and really look inside themselves and find out if what the fish system provides aligns with what they want to do. You have to be honest with yourself. Do you want to run a business like this? Do you want what this business can afford you? And if you do, I would say wholeheartedly go after it. The one thing I can think of is I wish I would have found fish sooner. I wish I was the guy that invented fish. I wish I was Mike Merrick. That would make me happy. If I could have put together a system like this that other people could partake in, that's one thing that I wish I could have done differently. Now, it's not realistic, and we're not going to see that happen, but it is a great system, and I really feel good about it. I just wish I would have started it sooner.